Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Srila Bhagavatam ki jai.
Jai.
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Tiravanachari
Yamuna Tiravanachari
Yamuna Tiravanachari
Yamuna Tiravanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshtu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Nashtaki. Okay. We're continuing Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti. And we read verse 18, so we're on verse 19. I believe we haven't read 19.
Correct. Yep.
1:8:19. Maya Jivanikat Channam Agnyatokshajam Avyayam Nalakshasi Murtadrusha Nato Naltetru Yuta. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Translation. Being beyond the range of limited sense perception, you are the eternally irreproachable factor covered by the curtain of deluding energy. You are invisible to the foolish observer exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna affirms that less intelligent persons mistake him to be an ordinary man like us, and thus they deride him. The same is confirmed herein by Queen Kunti. The less intelligent persons are those who rebel against the authority of the Lord. Such persons are known as asuras. The asuras cannot recognize the Lord's authority. When the Lord himself appears amongst us as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, or in his original form as Krishna, he performs many wonderful acts which are humanly impossible. As we shall find in the 10th canto of this great literature, Lord Sri Krishna exhibited his humanly impossible activities, even from the days of his lying on the lap of his mother. He killed the Putana witch, although she smeared her breast with poison just to kill the Lord. The Lord sucked her breast like a natural baby, and he sucked out her very life also. Similarly, he lifted the Govardhana hill just as a boy picks up a frog's umbrella, and stood several days continuously just to give protection to the residents of Vrindavana. These are some of the superhuman activities of the Lord, described in the authoritative Vedic literatures like the Puranas, Itihasas, histories, and the Upanishads. He has delivered wonderful instructions in the shape of the Bhagavad Gita. He has shown marvelous capacities as a hero, as a householder, as a teacher, and as a renouncer. He is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such authoritative personalities as Vyasa, Devala, Asita, Narada, Madhva, Shankara, Ramanuja, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jiva Goswami, Vishwanatha Chakravarti, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and all other authorities of the line. He himself has declared as much in many places of the authentic literatures, and yet there is a class of men with demoniac mentality who are always reluctant to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. This is partially due to their poor fund of knowledge, and partially due to their stubborn obstinacy, which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. Such persons could not recognize Lord Sri Krishna even when he was present before them. Another difficulty is that those who depend more on their imperfect senses cannot realize him as the Supreme Lord. Such persons are like the modern scientist. They want to know everything by their experimental knowledge. But it is not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experimental knowledge. He is described herein as atokshaja, or beyond the range of experimental knowledge. All our senses are imperfect. We claim to observe everything and anything, but we must admit that we can observe things under certain material conditions only, which are also beyond our control. The Lord is beyond the observation of sense perception. Queen Kunti accepts the deficiency of the conditioned souls, especially of the women class, who are less intelligent. For less intelligent men, there must be such things as temples, mosques, or churches, so that they may begin to recognize the authority of the Lord and hear about him from authorities in such places, holy places. For less intelligent men, this beginning of spiritual life is essential, and only foolish men decry the establishment of such places of worship, which are required to raise the standard of spiritual attributes for the mass of people. For less intelligent persons, bowing down before the authority of the Lord, as generally done in the temples, mosques, or churches, is as beneficial as it is for the advanced devotees to meditate upon him by active service. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Om Ajnana Timirantasya Jnana Janashalakaya Chakrurmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnaprethaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatane Vanchakalvatarupyascha Kripa Sindhuvye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavi Guravo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. How do you feel about closing that window? Does it sound okay to you? Thank you. It's great to get back with this chapter, Kunti's famous prayers. So in our first verse, we talked about how she begins her prayers by establishing her dependent position and Krishna's greatness above everything. And here, she's painting the picture of some of the challenge of what it means, why it's difficult to understand him. You are the eternally irreproachable factor, covered by the curtain of deluding energy. So Krishna is beyond. He's beyond everything. And she can see that because of her great realization in bhakti. And she's pointing out the challenge, this eternal challenge. We're engaged in a spiritual science. We're trying to understand the Supreme. We're trying to approach him. And the Shastra makes it clear that we can do that. You know, Vyasadeva says the proof that you can actually take up the process is that the Shastra says it, because it wouldn't say it if it wasn't possible for us. But by definition, Om Ajnana Timirantasya, we're born into Ajnana, where our default setting is not knowledge. Our default setting is unawareness. There is a deluding energy, and Krishna is, after all, the supreme totality of everything, the supreme secret, the supreme mystery. So Kunti Maharani is pointing out this eternal challenge. How do you understand and recognize the Lord? She says, you are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Right? If you have a good stage performance, you won't know who the actor is because they disappear into their role. They're so good at it. It's like afterwards, when they come out and take a bow, maybe, oh my God, that's my brother. Wow. You know? So Krishna is like that. The default is that he's not making himself apparent. So Srila Prabhupada focuses this purport on two things. One is how Krishna is transcendental, but those who don't understand that see him through their own lens. So we'll talk about that first. And the second thing he focuses on, as far as I can understand, is the challenge of trying to educate people to come to Krishna consciousness, God consciousness, and some of the obstacles and therefore some of the purpose of things like temple worship and different things like that. So first thing, although we don't want to admit it, we always see the world the way we are. We don't see it the way it is because it's bigger than us. That's a fundamental thing to understand. The world is actually bigger than any one person. It's Krishna's material energy. And because it's bigger than us, we can't see it the way it is. Because in order for that to be the case, we'd have to be bigger than it, right? If you're greater than the thing you're observing, then you can encompass it. We're not even greater than a single atom. Our capacity for understanding. You know, just like try to look at something, the closer you get to it, the more complicated it becomes. It's like those Persian carpets. They have like detail upon detail upon detail upon detail, you know? And yeah, that's like a very good example. It's a rather simple one, but the closer you get to even matter, the more complicated it becomes. It's like, oh, okay, it's just an atom. No, then it's subatomic particles. It's like there's always these different layers, and so it's just beyond us. So everything, even material, that we try to observe is defined, our experience of it is defined by our own current status. So in contrast to the modern paradigm, the Vedic paradigm really focuses on purifying your lens. The modern paradigm doesn't really deal with the lens very much. It doesn't really deal with this starting point that actually my ability to realize and understand truthfully depends on where I'm at. And therefore, how I conduct myself in my day-to-day affects my ability to obtain knowledge. It doesn't deal with that. It's in denial of that. Have you ever gone to school and had your teacher, professor tell you, okay, today we're going to learn about biology. And the first step in understanding biology is understanding that if your heart is not cleansed of polluted, distracting things, you won't understand biology. No, they never say that. I have a master's in public health. I never heard anybody say that. And yet it's true. It's completely true. We heard in the Japa affirmations, continuing our long-held tradition of quoting the Japa affirmations in class, Mahatma Prabhu talks about how the holy name Parang Vijayate is supremely victorious over all of our challenges, right? So as you were reading that, I was thinking about how by default, just by default, we run around accumulating distracting knowledge and polluting ourselves with all kinds of things in the heart, in that place where Krishna is supposed to sit, right? And how can he sit there? How can we be able to perceive him if we've accumulated all these things? So the first step is to be at least in the mode of goodness, right? This modern culture does not deal with, right? The epistemology, the science of how to understand something, is completely thrown off from step one. Step one is you have to clarify your lens. If there's no discussion of that, then it's a failure from the beginning. So the Vedic paradigm is actually, you have to clarify your lens. There is knowledge. Knowledge is an objective thing, and you are not fit, and nobody is fit. I'm not fit for understanding that on our own terms. We actually have to do our best to come to a higher state of knowledge so we can actually become students. And when we become students, because we've qualified ourselves to become students, then we can receive knowledge. That process means living in the mode of goodness. Because that's the process for stilling the mind. Just like water, if you have dust, dirt, different things in the water, you have to let it sit until those things gradually come to the bottom. Then the water is transparent. Then you can see through it, right? If you want to know what the bottom of a pond looks like, you have to remove all the sediment. You can't just see the bottom of the pond naturally. There's so many things that are disrupting the light rays. Similarly, there's all this stuff between us and the truth. We have to let it sit, and then we have to drain that, get that out. So mode of goodness living means simplicity, means introspection, means not accumulating more distraction, means not turning away from the truth. All these things, the science of the modes of nature we've talked about in other places, but this is basic standard of human living. And feeling bad about having a sense of what it means to pollute the heart, and feeling bad about that and trying to avoid it, right? Just like if you put your finger on a hot stove, your functioning body will interact with your subtle body, will tell you, that's not good. I don't like that. Move your finger right now. Bad, right? And you do it, because otherwise you'll damage your finger. So similarly, developing a sensitivity to sound vibration, a sensitivity to our surroundings is a sign of advancement in the modes of nature. Not necessarily transcendental advancement, but advancement in the modes of nature. Somebody who is more refined will feel uncomfortable around lower modes of nature. And the opposite is true. Somebody who is less refined will feel uncomfortable around higher modes of nature and comfortable around lower modes of nature. Ya nisha sarvabhutana. What is night for the introspective sage is the time of day for the common person. What is common time, daytime for the introspective sage, is just like nighttime for the common person. So one time, my Guru Maharaj was going to morning program, which makes it about 4:15 in the morning in LA when he was a brahmachari. Maybe this is just after he got married. And he's going to the temple. It's 4:15 in the morning. And he's walking to the temple on Watsika Boulevard. And there's one perspective on reality. The day is just starting. And in the other direction, there's a car. The car is full of party goers, not party goers, party leavers. After a long night of shenanigans, engaging in the lower modes of nature, they're done. For them, the day is ending. And they passed each other. They looked at each other. And he looked at them, and they looked at him. And he said, they looked at him, and they thought, what a psycho. What a crazy person. And he looked at them and thought, wow, what an unfortunate, crazy person. And therefore, there is this gulf. But we want that. Doesn't mean you don't have compassion. Doesn't mean you can't bridge that gulf. You can from the side of the mode of goodness. You can actually bridge that gulf. You can't from the other side. But we want to be on that side where we're aware of lower modes of nature, and we're sensitive to that, and we avoid that, right? So this is the first topic that Prabhupada is talking about, that persons who are in the modes of nature can't see Krishna because they see through their lens. So what do they see? They see this is mythology, this is history, this is a moral parable, this is made up, This is a system for control. This is just another religion. This is whatever they see because of their own conditioning. Fill in the blank. 7.5 billion people will give you 7.5 billion different answers within the modes of nature. In fact, any one person, you put them in a different mode of nature, they'll give you a different answer. We're always changing our mind too. That's proof we don't actually know the truth. If I'm in a bad mood, my perception of reality is completely different than I'm in a good mood. We're not like one thing. We're just like little pieces of straw and leaves being flung about in the waves of the ocean. We think we can understand clearly. So that's the first point, is that people, they don't understand Krishna. They can't understand Krishna, although he's beyond. So Prabhupada starts approaching this principle of how to get to understanding of the Supreme Person. He points out Shastra talks about him. The great authorities, right? There's argument by authority. Those who are actually more knowledgeable than you can give you insight. So he quotes Devala, Asita, and then Madhva, Vyasadeva, and then modern acharyas, Ramanujacharya, even Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya is the acharya of the impersonalists. Even he admits Narayana Paro Vyaktat. Narayana is beyond the modes. He's beyond the world. He's beyond the creation of the world. He is transcendental. Even Shankara says that. The acharya of the impersonalists. Even the impersonalists actually are the best example of stubbornly, Prabhupada says here, stubborn obstinacy. Stubborn obstinacy to reluctance to accept the Lord as the supreme absolute truth. Their own acharya tells them that he's the absolute truth. And although he focuses most of his teachings on recognizing just that your spirit, doesn't focus on Krishna, his final instruction is Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Mudha Mate. Foolish persons, Mudha Mate, same word you find in here. Mudha Drisha, foolish. Mudha means like a donkey, foolish. Mudha Mate, oh, you whose intelligence is foolish. Bhaja Govinda, worship Govinda. This is his final instruction. But they don't take it. You'll never find a follower of Shankaracharya who's worshiping, practicing bhakti, just sincerely, like, this is it, this is the whole thing. Not really. So he points out, Prabhupada does, the Shastra says, the acharyas say, but there's this gulf. And Prabhupada says part of the reason for the gulf is a poor fund of knowledge, it's ignorance, not knowing. And part of it may be the result of our previous misdeeds. Any accumulation of the modes of nature, any hardening around our own false ego makes it hard to shake that loose. Our false ego is the idea that I'm the supreme owner and controller, right? This is actually so intimate, this idea that I'm the owner and controller. It's such an intimate thing we hold on to. It's such a point of pride. It's this little sand inside the pearl of material nature, Pearls are created around a tiny bit of a grain of sand. It's this one flaw upon which we build so many things and they get hardened. And then if we talk about that flaw, you're not in control. You're not God. You're not the one. It's someone else. You're always, always, always going to be subordinate. Always have been. Always will be. Never going to change. That challenges the ego, the false ego, so badly. And depending on how much we built up around that false ego, Prabhupada says, he calls it the stubborn obstinacy which results from various misdeeds in the past and present. These misdeeds means anything that supports our false ego, anything that denies our service ego, our real ego. I'm just a servant. I'm just here to serve. I'm always going to be part and parcel of the Supreme. Anything which is in denial of that is going to create obstinacy, stubbornness, and it's called, therefore, a misdeed, right? Sin.
Anything that which is in denial
of our real nature.
Of our real nature.
As servants. Another word is sin, a word borrowed from the Judeo-Christian tradition. Real definition of sin, same thing. Anything that supports the idea that you're not a servant. So depending on any individual living entity's accumulation of support for their false ego, there may be, in addition to just ignorance, like just not knowing, innocent not knowing, there may be an active denial of reality, right? So in medicine, we have to deal with two things. We have to deal with the disease of the body, and we have to deal with the human being's tendency to not take their medicine. right? I had a friend in pharmacy school. He's a pharmacist now. He says the most challenging thing in pharmaceuticals, basically the science of getting people to take their medicine, is dealing with patient compliance or non-compliance, the human factor, because they think, I feel better. I don't need to take this medicine anymore. Or they start becoming their own doctor. They start going online, Googling things, and next thing they know, well, I don't need to take this. I figured it out. I went on Google, not to get into a whole discussion around what happened in the lockdown, but everyone became a degree holder in public health. I was like, oh, what an interesting thing. I didn't have to take a master's degree in public health. I could have just done what these people did. Spent half an hour online and figure it all out. So patient compliance. There's your disease that you went there for. And there's like, are you actually willing and able to take the medicine for the disease? That involves dealing with the human being. That's a much more complicated science. That deals with the moving parts of the emotions of a human, so there's two things. So there's the knowledge. We just don't know. I'm born to ignorance. It's not my fault in a way. I'm just like, Krishna's so great. I'm so small. I'm innocent. There's the second thing. My lens is covered. I've actively been covering my lens. I'm walking around like this thing. I can't see God. Show me God. Where is your God? He's not real, right? I'm in denial. So there's the way in which we're active participants in our own illusion. We're active participants in our own matrix. Even in the Matrix movie, little point drawing from that movie. I think it's Morpheus, who's outside the matrix, says, actually, you can't pull most people out. Most people refuse to give up the illusion. It's too challenging for them. It's too difficult for them. They have bought into it, and they will actively fight you if you try to pull them out of illusion, right? This actually applies to us. It's very difficult. Therefore, if it wasn't so difficult, if we didn't have a hand in our own illusion, all it would require is somebody grabbing us by force and saying, here it is. I drag you from the darkness to the light. You're welcome, right? Over. What's the problem, right? The problem is we won't accept it. We won't accept it. And we have to. It's not just a matter of like bashing somebody's head with the truth. You actually have to help them understand it and accept it. There has to be a way in which deep in their heart, they're like, yes, I accept this. That requires their will. That's why bhakti is such a subtle science, right? Bhakti performed in the lower modes of nature involves, I could be up here being, you're not your body, you're all fools in mind, thumping the Bhagavatam, thumping the pundit, the pulpit. And will that actually encourage anybody to soften and choose Krishna? Maybe, probably not. All it really does is create a surface level transformation. But because, as Prabhupada's pointing out, there has to be voluntary engagement. There has to be voluntarily choosing him, voluntarily letting go of our protective mechanisms that have been guarding our secret desire to be in charge. We have to choose to let go of that, even a bit at a time. Therefore, bhakti is such a subtle science. And so he says here, if you're trying to understand Krishna experimentally, first of all, it's not possible. Second of all, in this day and age, everybody is less materially intelligent anyway, right? He points out here, easy to take out of context, by the way, easy to misunderstand. Prabhupada says, Queen Kunti accepts this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially the woman class who are less intelligent. Less intelligent how? Less analytically proficient. Generally, if you find a yogi sitting on a mountaintop, engaging in deep mental introspection to try to clarify the heart, to recognize they're not the body, right? They're a man in a male body doing that. Why? Because typically the subtle body of a man is more analytical that way. That's their qualification. And we're not trying to do that, by the way, in this movement. We don't particularly care for that. In fact, we deride the idea of even doing that. But Prabhupada's saying, Queen Kunti, and she's going to actually go into this in other places too. She's very humbly says, how can I know you? I'm just a woman, right? This is her humility. Like, I'm not a great yogi. I haven't gone to school for so long in a Gurukul since I was 3 years old to control my senses. I recognize I'm not matter, blah, blah, this, and that, the other. I'm not like a great analyzer. I'm not a great mind. I'm no genius. I'm just a simple person. So Prabhupada, he's taking that statement, he's saying, she's right. We don't have any qualifications. In Kali Yuga, almost nobody has that qualification. Who's been trained from the age of 5 years old in a gurukul to be strictly in the mode of goodness so they can practice the impersonal path? Forget about it. It's not even on the table. Therefore, he says there has to be bhakti. There has to be at least introductory elements of bhakti. He talks about places of worship, churches, mosques, synagogues, temples. There have to be these places because for the advanced devotee, they don't necessarily need that. I'm talking really advanced devotees like the 6 Goswamis. They don't need temples. They're so powerful wherever they go, they create temples for everyone else. We're the everyone else. We're aspiring devotees, right? I'm an aspiring devotee. I need a place where I need a deity. I need someone that Krishna can give me some facility to engage with him with my senses. I need someone to accept my offerings of food so I don't just eat like an animal. I need, like that. And for somebody who's just starting out, to come to a holy place, to come even once a week, to do something is better than nothing. It offers them preliminary knowledge. They go, and ideally they hear. But even if they don't, there's some association, there's some basic thing, maybe there's deities. Next step is they hear. They start to hear, basic things. You're not your body. Even just be a good person, which, as we pointed out, being a good person helps with the first thing. It clarifies the lens. Less distraction around the heart, right? And maybe they think that's the whole point. Maybe they think that's why religion exists. That's why it's there to create people who are a little bit more pious. And that's okay. That's where they're at. That's their lens. But that doesn't mean that we should just do away with religious institution. That's what Prabhupada's saying here in the second part of the purport. It serves a purpose. It's part of the curriculum. It gives people an in. It gives people some proximity because then they can be around deities. They can be around mantras. They can be around more advanced devotees. They can be around the sound vibration, spiritual discussions. And eventually, even this life or the next life, they start to become more and more uncovered. So just to summarize, we have this lens. And we don't see things the way it is, we see it the way we are. That means, according to the modes we've acquired temporarily, we see the world that way. And there's also the second thing of our own active participation in our illusion. And therefore, it's a complicated thing. Patient compliance, getting people to take the medicine. So Prabhupada goes into a little bit this subtle science of helping people to take the medicine and how places of worship are part of that structure of medicine for the soul. Shastra is part of that structure. The acharyas are part of that structure. It's an ongoing program. The whole world is like a reformatory school. It's like a sanitarium for crazy people. And our disease, our craziness is so subtle that we require this multifaceted approach. And it also has to be very sensitive. I think I touched on that when I mentioned that smashing people over the head with the truth doesn't really help, because ultimately you can remove their illusion of truth very quickly by speaking it, I suppose. It's actually not a complicated science. God is real, you're a servant. That's basically it. It's basically what it's about. You should engage in his service, a couple sentences. But it doesn't address our own stubborn unwillingness to engage in his service, to accept that truth. That requires finesse, requires patience, requires subtlety, requires nuance, generally requires time, right? Like water can wear down a stone over time. Water is just very simple. You can take it for granted, but it can wear down anything over time. So in many ways, our Bhakti Yoga culture is a culture of how to get ourselves, and then ultimately when we're starting to help other people, to come to truth over time, according to their conditioning, on their own terms, in their world, in their language, with subtlety and with compassion for the fact that they have been for lifetimes actively participating in their own illusion. And without consideration of any proud, personally driven analytical path to success. That is not on the table for us. Right? In Kali Yuga, we're all like Kunti presents herself, just a humble woman. Right? She's in a society where there are functional yogis living on mountaintops. And she's like, I can't do that. I'm here in the world with my kids. I'm not on a mountaintop, Om Shanti, for decades. I don't have that qualification. So how can I know you, Krishna? Yeah, the answer, of course, is bhakti. But if she can't do it, we definitely can't do it. We didn't, that's not on the table. We're all, as far as she's concerned, we're all women. We're all less intelligent Shudras in the Kali Yuga. So therefore, there has to be this. This whole verse is paving the way for, like, as we can see, this deep embracing of bhakti as the only way, with humility. So now let's take some questions, reflections, comments. There's a lot in there. Hopefully I didn't overdo it, or hopefully it was cogent. It makes sense.
Intense.
I find it particularly interesting how Prabhupada gets into the subtle science of how to help a society become spiritualized. Churches,
I find it fascinating and so true. And, in the service, the work I do in the world with people, it's like giving different exercises, healing practices, meditations, things to journal on and contemplate, and energy healing practices and things like this.
And how often do they actually apply?
And even in like the Reiki training I just did,
right?
It's like I always say, the hardest part is to remember that you have these tools and to do them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what people who've signed on the dotted line and said, I want you to be my teacher. Please instruct me.
Right.
Please correct me.
Right.
If
they're willing.
I want that.
Yeah.
Even then it's difficult.
Right. So then, as you said, like with the pharmacist who said the most difficult part of pharmaceuticals is like that people actually, it says take these for 5 days, and people take them for 2 because they feel better after, and they don't see the medicine through, and so it doesn't take its full effect. And that's like what is happening.
The whole world is full of people who are trying to be their own doctor.
Yeah.
The whole world is full of people who are trying to be their own savior. That's the basic thing. I got this figured out. I'm fine. Yeah. Therefore, the most fortunate person, in a way, the most fortunate person is the one who's like who's had that idea completely removed. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not in control here.
Please help me.
I really need help. Because for them, half the work is done. Half the work is done. Very simple now. Now you can just pour the mercy in because they're an open, empty cup. For the other person, very complicated. You got to chip away at it. You got to chip away patiently. You got to very gently massage their ego, help them take the medicine. When I was a kid, my mom made me take my vitamins because they were chewable and had sugar. Flintstones chewable vitamins.
Still eat some of those.
And I only would have the orange ones because I like the flavor better.
Yeah.
With kids, it's a whole other thing. Bitter medicine, good luck.
It like still applies to us as adults.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard like as soon as you say I know, you're no longer willing to.
We're very emotional. We don't want to admit this. Humans are incredibly emotional beings. We're not rational beings most of the time. We're incredibly
driven by emotion.
What's the word I'm looking for? We're just not reliable. We're just like very, very flickering. We're like, our motivations are on an emotional level, on like honestly a superficial level so often, even as so-called adults. It's just like supporting feeling good, supporting feeling like we're in control.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think as Kali Yuga goes on, this land of instant gratification, I mean, like just in our lifetime, like you can get immediate relief for almost anything you want, whether it's finding something online or going to eat this or taking this drug or doing whatever. And so I think that, that's just going to make it so much harder. And I think like even with chanting, I struggle, in the beginning, it was like, okay, I'm doing a couple rounds. I don't feel anything, like this isn't working. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to try to do some more. And like, okay. And then you get to the point where I still feel like, there's times where I'm like, okay, I'm doing these. Okay. And like, it's that love of Krishna. It's just like, okay, just keep going. Just keep doing it. You told me this is something, it's me, it's my stubbornness, it's my ego, it's my like not, lack of surrender that like, I really trust this process that like, that's going to block me, but you just keep doing it. And so I think that's just, it was hard for me, to do that, because it's just like, well, I want that feeling right now, like, and because I get everything else right now, so like, why not this? And so it is quite a lesson in humility and patience. And I feel like, just the process of chanting has increased my patience, because of like knowing that it will, because everybody has said that I trust, it says it will, but it just takes time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. And yeah, that's what Mahaprabhu was talking about, that it's all victorious. Just trusting that. But what I took away from that as an action point was like, okay, so since that's true, and the holy name is more powerful than my own distractions, wouldn't it be a really good idea for me when I'm chanting to like ask for that Krishna to come and be a champion? Like, please come in with your sword and take out my own stuff, like defeat it, because I can't. I don't even know what it is. I can't even find it. Please. I know my heart's full of distractions, but you can overcome that. So chanting in that mood. And I found chanting in that, like, honestly, chanting in that mood sometimes only happens for a few seconds at a time. It's such a deep thing. But then those seconds become like just a few seconds of that, and around you're like, afterwards you're like, wow, that was real. I went somewhere. I could feel something. And that could practically justifies the whole process. So it's like, in many ways, it's an exercise for getting in touch with that place of just like, it's you, Krishna, not me, please. And when you feel that, for us in sadhana bhakti, 16 rounds is like an opportunity to throw the dart against a dartboard, and maybe you hit the bullseye in one round on one mantra. Maybe you just actually get there. And then it's like, yeah, you can live on that. You can live on that for the whole day. Right. And then you think like, what is Prabhupada experiencing in his japa? What are the Goswamis feeling? Like, Krishna is so great, and I'm just getting occasionally, despite myself, getting this much, and it's enough to live on. So it's like that. It's like that.
I'd like to double down a little bit on the whole concept of trust, right? So, the cleaning of the lens is necessary so that you can get to a point of trust. Like, depending on how materially involved you've been, you might not trust anything you see or anybody out there. I mean, I personally have been in that situation where I didn't trust anybody. And, I didn't trust, you can't trust you can't trust the politicians. You can't trust you can't trust the science. You can't trust any of it or maybe you can, but the cleaning of that lens so that you can even come to a realization that there is at least one entity that you can trust. And for me, that's Krishna. I mean, I think that's what we're getting at, is that, you clean all those layers of gook of your material conditioning so that there can be a modicum, one little trust molecule that grows.
Yeah, definitely. Bhagavad Gita 4:13, Krishna says, Vitaraga Bhaya Krodha Anmaya Mama Pashuta. Many people in the past have come to me by taking this process, giving up attachment, fear, and anger. And those three are different psychological divisions of obstructions. And part of it is fear, because trust. I always say this when I'm talking to people about the context of presenting bhakti. I say, as a starting point, we need to understand in Kali Yuga, everybody has authority issues. Everybody has a fear of authority. Everybody. Because this is the age of people letting each other down. The structure around us are falling apart. So there's only so many people who are still in the category of like blindly following and super like a child, trusting, humble, simple, right? I've always said like it's dependence, independence, interdependence. Those who are very, very simple are very few. More people are on the platform of proud independence. I don't trust anybody. It's just me against the world, Don't give me like religion, leadership, family, society, politicians. No, that's where they're at. That's where the intelligent people are at, because as a reaction to being dependent and being let down. So to get to interdependence takes great, great care to address people's trust issues. So that touches on that verse, attachment, fear, and anger. sometimes people are afraid. They're afraid because they've been let down, and sometimes they're angry. Sometimes there's a great reservoir of the consequence of being let down is anger. There's like passion and energy of like, no, nobody knows what they're talking about. It's all nonsense. Don't give me this Bhagavad Gita. Don't talk about anything. It's all nonsense because they've been let down. You know, underneath that, there's receptivity, but there's all these other things. Krishna talks about letting it go. Prabhupada mentions the purport, those three things. The other one is attachment, like passionate, desperate attachment to material enjoyment also gets in the way. So those kinds of things, they're part of the patient compliance side of stuff. And yeah, don't be surprised when you find a lack of trust. Everyone in Kali Yuga has trust issues. So in many ways, bhakti means learning to trust Krishna, and then learning to trust even one devotee, right? Just one devotee. It's like, I don't know what it is, but this person is just worth trusting. And that's a sign of advancement. Like they become a guru for you. And that's like an opening of the door. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leanne, Shakti, anything you'd like to share? In the chat.
Chat. Left. Oh, right there.
Thank you so much. It's also important to hear, and it's helping me to understand so much. You're welcome. I want one more reflection from anybody. Then I'll know that I gave a class that was worth listening to. Anything you heard?
Deep embracing of bhakti with humility is the only way.
Yeah. That's where she's going. That's where she's going.
Queen Kunti.
Queen Kunti. Yeah. Way beyond the coverings, way beyond the imperfect process of speculation and analysis. She's an incredible devotee. She's practically on the level of the goddess of fortune, or these purports that the acharyas point out. Sometimes people get hung up on the statement of Queen Kunti accepts this deficiency of the conditioned soul, especially of the women class who are less intelligent. It's like, that's a trap. Do you want to start getting into the differences between men and women? Because they're there. Men are definitely stronger in some ways. Women are definitely stronger in other ways, typically by the construction of the gross and subtle body, typically. Do we really want to get into that, or do you want to get into who you are beyond that? Because you have a choice. You can play with those things. There's unlimited factions for this flag or that flag, and playing with this. We need more of this in the world, more of that. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, there is enough of everything in the world except for Krishna consciousness. There is no lack of anything except for Krishna consciousness.
And I think it goes to like one of the themes of the retreat from this past weekend for me, which is like letting go of your proud independence to be led and to be corrected. And so I think that's just, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And I feel like the more we can own that and try to remember that, and especially in loving relationships and the most loving relationship with Krishna, like then we can finally soften a little bit.
Yeah.
Because a soft heart is not a fault, it's a qualification.
It's a qualification.
Said.
Yeah, bhakti will require letting go of your pride. Yeah. Which is why it's so difficult for the impersonalist and for those who are attached to their material qualification. It's one of the things that persons like Bhaktitirtha Swami point out is it makes it difficult for men who identify themselves by their intelligence. He said, actually, in this movement, the women are doing better because the people who are attached to their material qualification, like, for example, if you have some position and you think you're a big shot because you're a leader, that's a problem for you. That's a problem for your advancement, right? If you're a leader and you think you're a big shot because of it. So therefore, leadership is actually a great burden for one's spiritual advancement. It's a great sacrifice to take on a position of leadership. Better you don't do it. For your own bhajan, better you don't take any position at all. But you may do it to help other people. That's a sacrifice you're willing to take, right? Somebody who thinks they're very smart is very challenging for them. So most of my really challenging interactions in trying to share Krishna consciousness are with people who deeply identify with their intelligence, because they have a more complicated route to coming to bhakti. There's more to let go of. There's more defenses, more complicated defenses.
That's really interesting you say that, because I think the people in my life that have been very vocal about the changes I've gone through were people who think that they're like, they know it, and not being like condescending to them, but like they are really smart people.
Yeah.
And like they're just it's been really challenging to even maintain any sort of relationship with them, because they just can't get it. Like they won't get it, and they
Right.
don't understand like why a smart person, quote unquote, like me would do these things.
Right.
So,
Prabhupada mentions that. Another difficulty is that those who depend more on their imperfect senses cannot realize them as the Supreme Lord. Such persons are like the modern scientist. They want to know everything by their experimental knowledge, but it is not possible to know the Supreme Person by imperfect experimental knowledge. So when they soften, it's because they see the results in your life. And that's not, you ran the experiment. You ran it on the terms that Krishna gave. You run the experiment this way, pay attention to my name, see what happens. They are not willing to run the experiment, but you are, and the results they can see for themselves. Therefore, they soften. That's a much more powerful approach than jumping in the arena of the intelligence and like battling it out. Very difficult, limited rate of success. All that can really do is get them to a point of like, maybe there's something. And that can be useful for helping them to then take to the process itself. You can't prove Krishna. You can never prove Krishna through science. Never going to happen. Can't disprove him either. It's part of the challenge.
I think one other thing. Yeah, I really appreciate what you addressing the which I feel is always the elephant in the room, especially like when like our Sangha primarily is women. There's more women than men, and so when Prabhupada uses these words, and how about women being less intelligent, and how you address it as analytically, right, and just like. But
in terms of one aspect of analytical intelligence, and that's typically not always.
Right. It's just sort of in general, right? And then in general, women are more emotionally intelligent.
Also generally true.
Than men. And so, as you were just saying, and then therefore, perhaps they're more willing, they already have a softer heart, or maybe present that way, and then therefore
that seems to be
in their practice.
That seems to be supported by Shastra. There's more simplicity. There's more of a typical willingness to let go of like, maybe I don't know.
Right.
And part of it is that they're socialized that way. Women are socialized to be followers.
Right.
Which has good and bad points. Everything has good and bad points. If you're socialized to be a leader, the great American dream, be independent and proud, it's like, that's very good in some ways and very bad in other ways.
Right.
Everything has plus or minus, but.
And interestingly, when we fight our dharma as being in a female body, like how miserable that can be. Like I've experienced that myself, where it's like I fight that, and I definitely like have exuded masculine energy, and like that's not my nature, and it's created, I think, so much tumult and stuff like that because I'm not kind of like living my truth and living my dharma.
Yeah, that's a greater discussion there around like understanding your own material swadharma, which way the current's flowing and flowing with it instead of trying to swim against it. That's pretty much what varnashrama means, is to identify with help what your nature is and to work with it instead of against it. Spiritually speaking, it's really like an argument for bhakti, because our nature is that we're all devotees. And so to take up some process of like, I'll figure it out later, that's not even a process, that's just denial. Or I'll figure it out myself, proud, impersonal speculator, that's just not going to work. That's like what you're saying. It's like someone with a soft heart and a nurturing nature trying to be like a CEO and fight in a world that's been created for people who have a different nature. It's like, yeah, you could win, and at what cost? It's going to be very difficult for you and painful. You could reach the end goal of impersonal speculation. Why would you do that to yourself? Very difficult. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srimati Kunti Maharani ki jai. Now let's offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They're just like desire trees, they full of desires of everyone. They're full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpataru Krishna. Prasatubhye Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anand Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sweet soul.
Great to jump back into this chapter. It's such a great chapter.